and welcome to this edition of the Roy's Boys podcast. It's Anthony Pagnotta with you, and I'm going to be your host for tonight. Josh Marlowe is alongside of us, but he is a little bit under the weather, so I will be taking over the hosting duties, and he will be the guy that will be breaking everything down for you. It also makes a little bit of sense considering that he was able to see a little bit more of the game than I was. Unfortunately, I did have something going on this weekend, so I wasn't able to see the full game, but I was able to combine both watching and listening throughout most of the game. But we'll start out tonight by telling you that the Roy's Boys podcast is presented by Carolina Electrical Services. For all of your electrical services needs in the Charlotte or Asheville area, make sure that you call Jacob Marlowe at 704-320-7357. Once again, that number 704-320-7357, and tell them that the Roy's Boys podcast sent you. So, buddy, we'll jump into it. And, of course, we got a big win on Saturday over Florida State. This was a team that came in as the hottest team in the ACC with an 8-game win streak. And there was a guy on social media that was telling me they weren't the hottest team coming in, but statistically they were. And, Carolina faced a pretty tough test at home coming off the game against Duke. But, so far under Roy Williams, after the first Duke game, Carolina is undefeated, and they continued that with a 77-59 win over the Florida State Seminoles. And we heard all week coming in that Florida State was going to be a team that was going to try to slow down the Tar Heels and keep them off the board. Carolina was able to do exactly that to Florida State and hold them to just 59 points, just 25 points in the second half. So when you look back on this game, I know that, you did a fair share of listening to the game as well, but you were able to, for the most part, get all of the game in and understand everything that was going on. So from your perspective, I know there was a point where this game was close. Of course, at halftime, it was 37-34. What was the turning point in the game for Carolina?
They went on a decisive 16-1 run in the second half that spanned, I think it was almost 7 minutes that this run took. And once they went on that run, because the game got down, it was 56-52, then they went on the spurt. That was the game. I thought they did a really good job defensively backing up that effort against Duke, because just with their activity, they were talking, they were switching, just everyone was where they needed to be. Offensively, we weren't that sharp again. Only 43% from the field, 35% from three, but we still, we got to 77 points. But this game was one where I thought it was going to be one which was on the boards. We out-rebounded Florida State 47-32 and doubled them up on the glass 13-6. And we've said all year long, if you don't shoot the ball well, but you rebound it well, that can make up for a bad offensive game, and that's what they did again against Florida State.
Well, you talked about the rebounding differential, and I think what some people may not understand is just how big this is against Florida State. This is a team that has got sensational size, and coming in, Florida State was one of the better rebounding teams in the conference. Carolina, as you mentioned, a plus 15 on the glass. In particular, Luke May had a great day, as well as Cam Johnson, who had 10 rebounds, and then Azir Little added 8 as well. So, when you look at what Carolina was able to do on the glass, what do you think was the difference? Was it just effort level, or was there something else going on? Maybe Florida State isn't as good on the glass as we once thought.
I think it's more about the effort just because of the length and the athleticism that Florida State has. Whether they're good or not is, we could discuss something else. But when you're that long and that athletic, rebound is just going to come more easier for you. So, and we've done it the last couple of years. It seems like against them, we play smaller a little bit longer. I remember the year we won the national title game or the national championship in 2017. We put Theo at the 5 against them, and he was just all over the glass. So for some reason, Roy likes to go smaller against their length because it works, because we're a little bit quicker. And I think it's what it was. We were just a little bit more faster to the ball, and we were just more relentless in that effort or in that area of the game.
I mean, you talk about Nazir Little. What a fantastic performance from him. 18 points, 2 thunderous dunks that I think will resonate with the Tar Heel Nation for a long, long time. And as I mentioned, 8 rebounds, did just about everything. Got on the stat sheet with 1 assist, 1 steal, 1 block. I mean, he was all over the place. Also did something that we've seen him have a little bit of trouble with throughout the season, which was stay out of foul trouble. He had just 1 foul in the game. So when you look at Nazir Little, this was a guy that coming into the game, I thought would step up and really bounce back after a sluggish performance against Duke, and he did just that. Do you think maybe it was just one of those confidence things? And one of the other things that I want you to talk just a little bit about is the fact that he was able to get to the free throw line 8 times, something that we just didn't see from him that much early in the year.
Yeah, I think it was just a better case of he was in the rhythm and the flow of the game as opposed to the Duke game. Roy said after the Duke game, it wasn't that he did anything wrong that limited his 11 minutes. It was just the way the game was going. It didn't warrant his presence on the floor, whereas against Florida State, he really brought the energy into the building with, like you said, with those 2 dunks that somehow did not make on SportsCenter Top 10 Saturday afternoon. That's a unbelievable, that'd have been Zion, that'd have been all 10 highlights, but
they actually did have a top 10 highlight of Zion sitting on the bench, so that was not that shocking.
Not surprising. But he really brought the energy into the game. Got the fans into it. So it was just one of those where the game suited him and his aggressiveness, like you said, getting to the foul line 8 times. I think he might actually lead the team in foul shots in ACC play, but it's like you said, it's because he has some games like against Florida State where he got there 8 times, and he gets there 6 times, and he gets there 4 times, and just adds up. We need more of that. I think that's been the biggest problem is like, okay, can you do it back-to-back games? He had the stretch early in January against Notre Dame and Virginia Tech where he put it back-to-back, but since then he's been a little bit inconsistent. Hopefully this was maybe the last time where he got the last little bit of confidence in himself in his game, because March is right around the corner, and he's going to need to be a big part of this team's success.
I mean, which dunk did you like better, man? I know you're a guy that loves offensive rebounding, so that second one may have ended up being the one that you liked the best. I thought the first one was just amazing, slamming it over. I believe it was one of their big guys. Was it Kamaji or Cabin? One of the two.
Yeah, no, I love offensive putbacks, but the one where he just threw it on that one guy and baptized that kid, that was something. Just a freak of nature is Nazir Little.
Okay, and then we'll wrap this recap up by talking about Kobe White. This was a guy that we thought might bounce back in this game after struggling against Duke. And while, he did have 10 points in the game, and we talked to your little brother and future sportscaster Ashton Marlowe, he said, I do expect him to bounce back and have a good game. He finished with 10 points. He also had 4 assists, but did turn the ball over 3 times and did finish with 4 fouls as well, so he was in a little bit of foul trouble. But he was 4 of 13 from the field, 0 of 5 from 3. So when you look at this game for Kobe White, I wouldn't say it was a bounce back, but at the same time, I wouldn't say it was the worst thing. Where are you at right now with Kobe White? And do you think maybe he's just in one of those stretches that freshmen reach in, their freshman season?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's a little bit of a hangover from struggling against Duke. And also, he might have hit that little bit of a freshman wall that he hasn't hit since early part of conference play.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, I'd rather him hit that now than, let's say, in the second weekend of the NCAA tournament come March. So, just still part of growing as a freshman in this system that's very complex. And, look, as long as we're winning and he's doing some of the other things well, then at some point his shot's going to come back because he's too good of a shooter. And it wouldn't surprise me against Syracuse if that shot does return for Kobe White.
So just a couple other notes that we'll throw out here before we turn and focus on the Syracuse game. Tar Heels went relatively short on the bench once again. 8 Tar Heels playing 9 minutes or more. And Brandon Robinson, actually the guy with the least minutes out of all of those guys, with 9 minutes throughout the entire game. He's been a big part of this team throughout the year, but in those 9 minutes did finish with 3 points, 3 rebounds as well. Seventh Woods also played 12 minutes off the bench, but wasn't quite as effective as he was against Duke, but once again, a calming presence. So you can see Carolina with the injuries shortening the bench, and also this is something that Roy Williams does as the season goes along. You talked about the free throw line, and that was the one area that Carolina still shot really well. They didn't shoot great from the field, and again, from 3 out, 35% is not bad, but still, Carolina would like to be a little bit higher. They did finish shooting 72% at the free throw line, 18 of 25, so average, but not the greatest. And overall for the day, an actually low assist number. They had 11 assists, and they had 7 of those come in the second half. They had just 4 in the first half, I believe. Eric Montross said that was a season low for the fellas in the first half, but they did bounce back nicely and, of course, take home the 18-point win. So now it's time to turn to the game against Syracuse. That one's going to be in the Smith Center tomorrow night, and Syracuse is a team that Carolina has, had some, I'm not going to say struggles with, but they've had some tussles with them. For the most part, they've owned them in this series, but Syracuse, as always, is a tough team, and they come off a win the other day against, who did they play? Did they beat? No. Did they win the last time out, or no? They lost. That's right. They did beat Louisville on the night of the Duke game, and then actually fell. That's right, to Duke over the weekend, 75-65. And now they will come in and face the Tar Heels. So, what are you expecting from this Syracuse team? It's kind of again, I still think Carolina has the advantage when it comes to talent. This Syracuse team is still a very good team, and I think if they do end up making the tournament, they will cause people some problems. But at 18-9, seems not guaranteed to make the tournament. It would seem like there's a very good chance that they are going to make the tournament, but they don't want to risk that. So, what are you expecting to see from this Syracuse team?
Well, I mean, they're going to be in their 2-3 zone, but I'm trying to think they're going to start treating every game as if it's their last chance to make the tournament. Because outside of the win in Cameron against Duke back in early January, they don't have a whole lot of great wins on their resume, and they've got some really bad losses that they earned in the non-conference part of the season. They're solid defensively as they always are, but like offensively, this team just, I hate to say this, they don't, when I watch them, I don't know what they do on offense. They just pass and then someone takes a bad shot and they pray it goes in. There's not a whole lot of movement. There's not a whole lot of activity. It's just a lot of individual one-on-one basketball, but at times it's worked. I mean, last year they kind of played the same way and then made the Sweet 16. 3 years ago, they got to the Final Four playing kind of individual on offense, but really good team defense. They've got some guys that can put the ball in the basket. Tyus Battle, averaging over 17 points a game, can do that. O'Shea Brissett is the guy that is more than capable of getting his own, both in points and rebounds. But they're just a very weird team. Boeheim is just. He struggled the last couple of years to put a legit offense on the floor, but his 2-3 zone, even all these years later, still causes most teams problems, except Carolina, who has won, I believe it's 8 straight in the series. And so they'll look to continue that tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean, and as I mentioned, it's never really been easy against them, but like you said, 8 straight in the series, and again, the talent level seems to be in favor of Carolina in this game. As you mentioned, they have struggled to score points. They average just 69.8 points per game so far this season. They shoot just 42% from the field and just 32.1% from deep. There's only one guy on their team that shoots over 40% from 3, so they've got some some guys that do shoot a little bit lower. But you mentioned Tyus Battle, a guy that averages 17.1 a game, and a guy that's probably going to show up on one of the All-ACC teams. Elijah Hughes, who, of course, went nuts in the first game against Duke. So he's a guy that can turn it on at times, and he's having a pretty consistent year, 13.7 a game. Also has 4 rebounds. And then you mentioned O'Shea Brissett, 13 points per game and 7.8 rebounds per game. The one guy that I'm kind of shocked really isn't having that great of a year is Frank Howard. He is averaging just 8.1 per game, and this was the guy that we thought was possibly going to take it to the next level and create what would be a dominant backcourt for Syracuse this year along with Battle, but he just really hasn't been able to do that throughout this year. And one of the other things that you notice when you look at them, this is a team that averages just 12.2 assists per game and averages 12.2 turnovers per game. So their assist-to-turnover ratio is even. That's something that you never really want to see. But one of the areas you mentioned, of course, on the defensive side of the ball, they run the 2-3 zone, so they are going to slow you down. And you look inside, I mean, they average 4.9 blocks per game, so it's not going to be the easiest thing to get inside. We saw that bother Carolina a little bit at times against Florida State, and we've seen it over the past 2 years. That size inside can bother them, but, Pascal Chukwu is the guy to keep an eye on. He averages 1.7 blocks per game, but overall, I think this is a game that, Carolina, they have the advantage when it comes to talent. Now, the one thing that I do think at this point in the season, Syracuse has the advantage at is they do go 9 deep, so a little bit deeper than Carolina. The Heels sticking with 8 at this point with the injuries, unless Leaky Black surprisingly returns, which we don't see that happening, or if Sterling Manley is able to come back and actually play in a game. He has suited up for a few games, but has not actually been able to get out on the floor. That might extend Carolina's bench back out to 9 or eventually 10 if both of those guys are able to return. As for right now, do we have any updates on whether or not they'll be able to play in this game?
As of right now, there's no way you would imagine Leaky's playing. He hasn't even dressed out yet. And with Bixter, it's just, I don't know.
It's a game-by-game thing. You never really know.
Yeah, and he's doing more in practice. I'm of the opinion that, you'll see Bixter in the regular season before you see Leaky. Mm-hmm. Leaky, probably best-case scenario, is the ACC tournament. I thought I had to sneeze, so I apologize for that. But, we really don't know because they don't know until they walk on the floor with Bixter and with Leaky. It's an ankle, and it's always just you play it safe and just see how long it takes to respond.
So we'll get our predictions here. I guess. Do you want me to start, or you know what? I'll let you start this time. You're the analyst this time, so I'll let you start, and then I'll finish us up and take us out.
Yeah, I do think Carolina wins. I think it'll be closer than expected because I think Syracuse, who's going to have some confidence, they have one in Duke, so the environment won't scare them. They are, unfortunately, though, they are playing Duke and Carolina back-to-back, and really that didn't go very well. I know Virginia beat us after losing to Duke a couple weeks ago, but this Syracuse team is nowhere near as good as that UVA team. But I think it'll be another game that Carolina's kind of got to grind its way through. It'll be a struggle. It's Kobe's first time against that kind of zone defense, and that will cause some specific problems. But end of the day, Roy Williams knows how to coach against the zone. I think he'll put Luke May right in the middle of it. I think he'll have a big day, lead Carolina to 23-5. More importantly, that would push us to 12-2 in the ACC. Or no, that would be 13-2, wouldn't it? So, and keep us right in the thick of things as this ACC chase winds down with 2 weeks to go.
Yeah, everything you said I think is pretty accurate. I think Syracuse is going to come out with some pretty good energy because, like you said earlier, they're got to look at this as, their chance to get in. Again, they don't have the greatest resume wins, although they do have a win over Louisville, which I think is very helpful considering Louisville is a fellow bubble team, so they do have the advantage there. But at the same time, I think you're right. They're going to be looking to take every chance they can get, and they're also still looking to try to be that fourth bye come ACC tournament time. So they're not going to go away easy. I think that it will be a tough game, and as you mentioned, Kobe White's first time seeing that zone is never going to be an easy thing for any freshman point guard, but we've seen it with Kobe at times this year. He's had some of those moments where he has gotten a little troubled by some of the full court pressures, half court pressures, which Syracuse will throw at you from time to time as well as the 2-3 zone. So we'll see how he's able to handle it. I think having Seventh Woods there will definitely help, and Roy Williams will use him as he must. I like your pick of Luke May, a guy that has had success against them in the past, especially in those soft spots in the zone. I also think Garrison Brooks has a good game. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Garrison has one of his better games of the year. I think he gets up into the double-digit points. I think he finishes somewhere in between 6 and 8 rebounds. And I think he's the guy that we're talking about when we end up recapping this game, whether I think it's going to be Thursday night. I think he shows out, and I think Carolina pulls out the victory. It'll be a close one. I'll say somewhere between the 6 to 8 point mark, but I think Carolina does get the win. And it should be another good environment in the Smith Center on Tuesday night, so that'll be exciting to watch. I think everybody's realizing, as we get closer and closer to the end of the year, that Duke game is not that far off. Believe it or not, it is next Saturday, not this coming Saturday, but the Saturday after that. So it is right around the corner, ladies and gentlemen. So I think that's going to wrap it up. Is there any other loose ends you want to tie up before we go ahead and get out of here and get this thing posted?
Just want to mention that if Carolina does win tomorrow, they do secure themselves a double bye in the ACC tournament. So that's the first step, you want to accomplish, in terms of winning the ACC. But, since they've gone to the 5-day format with the expansion, you kind of want to, the double byes better. Although we've made the ACC championship game playing 4 games in 4 days. So, but yep, that they do have the possibility of blocking that up tomorrow night with a win over Syracuse.
And that would be huge. Carolina would be locked in and keep themselves in a tight race right now. It's actually a 3-way tie atop the ACC as we speak. And so Carolina wants to stay in that battle and possibly get the regular season ACC championship to themselves once again. So that's going to do it for this edition of the Roy's Boys podcast. Make sure you guys go ahead and subscribe to the podcast on Spreaker, iTunes, got it on Google Play, and also we now have it on iHeartRadio, so you guys can check it out at any of those locations. Go ahead and like and subscribe to the podcast. And also, if you want to, give us a review. We'd love that. Go ahead and check out the Roy's Boys blog. That's written by the guy that you just heard breaking down the game and helping preview the game against Syracuse, Josh Marlowe. He'll be back next week, or he'll be back on our next episode, actually, as the host. Hopefully, he is fighting through something right now. But like Michael Jordan in the flu game, you got to keep going. So he's here with us, at least as an analyst. As always, you guys can check out my blog and my podcast. That's Heel Tough Blog, and then just add podcast to the end of it, Heel Tough Blog Podcast, if you want to listen to the podcast. Everything covering Carolina football, and we'll have a new episode coming out where we'll update everything that went on with the Junior Day this past weekend, take a look at some camp battles, and maybe throw a couple other loose end things in there as well. So we want to thank you guys for listening. For Josh, I'm Anthony. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening, and go Tar Heels.